Peace, peace, peace. Welcome to another episode of Wazadone TV. Today, I have a very, very special guest. We're going to be covering a lot of different topics, such as her projects that she has going on in Ghana, this what's happening in electoral politics, even the Buju Banton interview. So, yeah, make sure you definitely stay tuned. But Sister Atiyah, thank you for coming through. I've been wanting you on for a while, and so we got it done.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. I really
Indeed.
respect what you've been doing, having these important conversations and making them accessible to the people.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you. That means a lot because that's what it is. That's what we're all in it for, our people. And speaking of that, like I know you have a Ghana, a hospital project in Ghana, and I think we should lead with that because that's extremely important. If you can, just kind of shed some light on what you're doing.
Certainly, so I don't want to overstate what's occurred yet,
Hmm.
but what the ultimate goal, what we're gearing up towards is an anticipation of um, medical equipment becoming accessible and available to us in 5 years.
Wow.
And so our plan is I'm a respiratory therapist by trade, and I have a great many colleagues who are Ghanaian and a great many colleagues who are just interested in. I'm getting a phone call. They're interested in repatriating and bringing our knowledge back to Africa.
Mm.
So what we have is an opportunity now to couple that knowledge with an actual tool that can be used, and the goal is to save a great many lives. So what we are seeing now is, again, in 5 years' time, we're going to have a ventilator available to us that will no longer be readily available and accessible in the United States. The FDA is no longer going to support it.
Mm.
So we're going to get this ventilator, acquire it from all these various hospitals who, with our Western principle of disposing,
Right.
a very disposable culture we live in. So we'll have these ventilators available to us, and we'd like to transport them. I have been, some of my colleagues have already been of the mind of introducing this to Africa. And so to this goal, I visited Africa in May. I had the opportunity to visit the medical center, that's the University Medical Center, and so various polyclinics in the neighborhood surrounding, and was able to understand that, yes, there is a need. There is a clear path to being able to pursue this goal.
Hmm.
And as I've been a respiratory therapist for 15 years, acquiring knowledge, uh, based here in Chicago specifically for the last 10 years, the knowledge that I can share with Africa is needed, and they are ready to accept it. So to that point, and again, I don't want to overstate what it has been done,
Yeah.
but what we have done is had some very important conversations and been able to establish some very clear pathways. And so we've had, when we speak about our brothers and sisters in the diaspora, we understand that the immigrants that we receive here are largely one of two types. One are, the plugged people
Hmm.
whose family was able to send them and get their
Hmm.
education. And the other type would be, you know, those that are fleeing conflicts in their tradition, in their native lands. So to that point, Ghana has been very stable. So we have a lot of Ghanaians who are here, who have resources and are very well connected. And so we have already secured land donations
Dope.
in Fanti land in the central region, and from the Ga people who are just outside of, well, they are largely in Accra, but outside of Accra, we have secured some land as well. So when we are at this state, we have a three-pronged attack. We're going to introduce the education, we're going to introduce the tool, and we are gearing up to eventually build hospitals as well.
Wow.
So that's my Ghana project. Everything has kind of been, I've been saying, kind of jokingly that I feel at times like I'm being pulled by my collar to kind of go and do this thing.
Yeah.
Every time I kind of try to put it down, um, I'm just giving confirmation,
Hmm.
you know, that this is what must be done, and this is what can be done. And so it's important, we know that education is a commodity in the West.
Hmm.
We pursue these educations, we pursue these degrees for the purpose of making ourselves basically more sellable on the market,
Right.
a better commodity. We could sell our labor at a higher expense. But when we're revolutionary minded, we have to understand that the education that we are receiving is a tool, and our accessibility, the way that we are able to access this education has been hard fought and hard won. And so we are indebted to our people for the ability to get our education, and we must then use our education for our people. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And now in Ghana, what is their situation like as far as, hospitals, medicine, and equipment? Like,
Uh,
so, mhm,
so we had the opportunity again to visit the university medical center, and about 10 years ago, they had kind of a student exchange program set up
mhm,
where in the University of Kansas sent respiratory um, therapists, students, and also professors to Ghana to educate. I think it was like a class of 10, I was told. And so they repeated this process for about 3 years, but then we had COVID. And when COVID struck, of course, they had to pull back. So then
mhm,
you have the respiratory therapists in Ghana kind of educating themselves. Um, it's a very new profession, but when you understand what we do, it's a very crucial profession.
right.
And so the Ghanaian respiratory therapists have actually been educated to an extent that we would consider to be like an anesthesiologist here in the States.
Hmm.
So they're very well educated. However, the resources are few. So they have a state of the art hospital. Um, however, it's a 16-bed hospital.
Hmm.
I was told by the therapist that I spoke with, Mami Bema, shout out to her. She was recently married. Um, she told me they have 16 beds, but they can only operate 6 ventilators because they only have nurses
Mm.
to see the 6 patients.
Right.
Because what they're experiencing is what a lot of Africa experiences, which is a great brain drain to the West.
Yes.
So the ventilators that they have, they're a few years old. They can only have 6 beds. There's limited staffing because they've also lost respiratory therapists. So though the technology is there to a limited extent, we're talking about servicing a city of 8 million people with these 6 ventilators. And of note, when I returned to the United States, the president had there was an accident of the presidential motorcade. He had
Hmm.
actually flown back to the capital from Kumasi, but there was a presidential uh, motorcade that um, maybe 5 or 6 people in the motorcade were severely injured. And so I thought to myself, wow, they were then taken to this hospital in Accra, and I wonder
Mm.
how they were able to maintain them.
Right.
Um, I had the opportunity to speak with a respiratory therapist, the respiratory therapist in Kumasi, Ghana. And again, underserviced. The profession is very new.
Hmm.
Recently, I was also in Portugal. I met with a physician there who works at the very same hospital where this respiratory therapist works, and she was not aware of his presence.
Mm.
So there's just the profession is not well known. Certainly, there are not ventilators in the country, and visiting the polyclinics that are situated throughout the neighboring, I would say like what we deem like a suburb in
Hmm.
the community. We visited one polyclinic, and it was just very underserved.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
want to elaborate too much on.
Yeah.
I don't want to create this idea of like, oh, the poor, the African, but certainly the clinic was lacking in resources. And I
Hmm.
did see a pediatric patient that they weren't able to service at that clinic. They did have an ambulance to bring him out to the main clinic, but the issue was numbers.
Yeah.
Certainly you just need more resources to service such a densely populated area.
Indeed.
Um, However, the biggest resource that the African people have is just the love of education,
Hmm.
the priority that's placed on education,
Hmm.
and the young African mind,
Yeah.
and that's really what was very inspiring. And so, to that point, of course, again, going back to how education is made a commodity. So in Ghana, of course, you have to pay for education. You have to pay your school fees,
Hmm.
and so with that. a great many people are just excluded from the opportunity to obtain
Yeah.
higher levels of education. Great minds. We've probably lost so many cures for cancer and so many,
Mm.
um, just so many mental resources,
Right.
to
Yeah.
poverty.
Hmm.
And so with that, the principle that we have here in the United States of a community college and like a trade school being like kind of less than,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
so we don't really encourage acquiring a trade.
Right.
However, certainly that's something we have to re-examine as African people here in the West.
Absolutely.
And we want to introduce trade school or that principle of trade school to Ghana.
Mm.
So the idea is to introduce a 2-year program,
Hmm.
which is what I went through as a respiratory therapist. Certainly, I've
Mm.
done continuing education, but 2 years to acquire my degree,
Hmm.
as opposed to a 4-year program.
Hmm.
We'd like to sponsor it here in the West with, those Ghanaian therapists and those African American therapists who would like to contribute, and certainly those from the Caribbean throughout the diaspora. But if we can sponsor these students for a 2-year program, get them in, get them out, we have the resources there, and hopefully we'll be able to mobilize very quickly.
And so for everybody watching that would like to um, know if they can assist in some way, um, what do I tell them?
Yeah, the best way to link me is just to drop me an inbox on
Hmm.
Facebook.
Hmm.
Yeah, um,
And that will be in the description. So,
that will be in the description. Yeah, just give me a link. Um, I know just anecdotally from speaking to people who I cross paths with,
hmm.
that there is an understanding that at a certain time, the situation is going to become untenable here.
Mm.
And so to that point, when
Hmm.
I was invited to go to Ghana, and certainly had a reason to go to Ghana, I'd like to tell all of us here in the West what I was told, and that is Aquaba. We are welcome.
Hmm.
They want us home. They
Hmm.
see the value that we're bringing. We are in a very privileged position here in the West as Black people. I mean, it's fraught. I don't, I'm not,
Yeah, I
I'm not
understand. I
saying
understand. I know what you mean. Yeah, 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 yeah,
I'm not saying
yeah,
it's great.
yeah.
I'm just saying that the access that we have to the
Hmm.
resources,
Right.
as we are here in the belly of the beast,
Hmm.
you know, we have this access. We have a tremendous opportunity to share our resources,
Right.
specifically our mental resources.
Hmm.
And so I like to tell everyone, yes, come on, the water is fine.
Right, right,
Water
right.
is fine.
No doubt, no doubt. I
Certainly,
can't wait to go.
yes,
I
it's
can't
a
wait.
must.
Yeah, I
And
already
certainly
know.
the notion that we have about comfortability in
Hmm.
the West,
Hmm.
I'll say yes, we are experiencing power outages. We are experiencing water delays.
Oh, absolutely.
Uh, we're experiencing these things in the West, aren't we?
Yes, absolutely.
So um, we can improve that, and we can create a comfortable condition
Hmm.
with our civil engineers
Right,
and with our healthcare professionals
right.
and with our masons and with
Hmm.
our carpenters.
Hmm.
We can take these skills back
Right.
and we can share them and we can become profitable. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I love it. I love it. There are also some things, I wanted to build with you on. It's a lot going on in this world, especially right now. And as somebody, who has like anti-colonial, anti-imperialist politics, such as myself and you, how do you perceive this strategy of voting for the lesser of two evils, particularly within a system that often upholds imperialist values, whether it's Democrat or Republican?
I don't see it as a strategy.
Right.
I think that we're kind of beholden to this idea that our ancestors, we fought for the vote, we died for the vote, we shed our blood for the vote, we are entitled to the vote. And this is true. But we have to understand that now the vote is a moot point.
Mm.
Certainly in when we speak about the electoral college and
Mhm.
how that operates to
Right.
elect the highest office in the land, and then kind of the impotence that's associated with the highest office in the land.
Mm.
Um, when we discuss, what is actual strategy? If we're trying to liberate ourselves, to have autonomy, to create a world in which our children are um, comfortable, are able to express their greatest heights, can we continue to do that by trying to negotiate for a piece of a system that was uh, built to exclude us?
Right.
We're continuing to beg for inclusion,
Mm.
and we've been told explicitly we don't want you to be included in this discussion.
Right.
And at a certain time, when you assess liberation struggles,
Hmm.
the conversation is never surrounding asking the oppressor if you can contribute to his system.
Right.
The conversation is always surrounding creating one's own system.
Mm. Right.
And so, to that point, so when we had our ancestors now voting, I'm sorry, dying and struggling and demanding a vote, we have to understand that the situation has now changed. The climate has changed. The rules have changed.
Hmm.
The goalposts have been moved.
Hmm.
So, okay, I've given you the vote. Now vote your heart away.
Right.
We do nothing else.
Hmm.
We do nothing
And we
else.
do nothing else.
We do nothing else. We don't strategize
Hmm.
outside of the system. We don't self-educate. We don't plan. We don't engage in any kind of activity outside of waiting for this periodic opportunity to cast a vote.
Absolutely.
So in that way, it creates it's kind of a pacifier for us.
Hmm.
Give the baby their binky and let them,
Yeah,
let them
no,
stop crying about the vote.
yeah, you're absolutely right. Because like even, with the the Voting Rights Act of 64 and all the things that were going on in the 60s, uh the things that we did get came from the solidarity that we had with each other to force their hand, right? It wasn't a thing to where we appealed to some morality that the ruling class and these politicians have, because we know that they don't have a moral compass, so to speak. So it's
There's
like,
no moral compass.
right. And so,
The power, you stated it yourself, the power was in the organization.
right, right.
That's where we showed the strength of power in an organized effort towards this end goal.
Yes.
And so that was a lesson for us to have absorbed,
Hmm.
is that there's strength in numbers, there's certainly strength in organized numbers.
Right.
But what we did was we strategized and we obtained this specific goal, and then we just stopped.
Yep. Yep.
We tried to just we acquired that one thing and then we stopped. And then certainly now when we look at our options when we vote,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So, frequently we talk about this Democratic versus Republican discussion. But we're getting killed 24/7, 365, no matter who is in office.
Right.
I
Right.
think Rodney King happened during the Clinton presidency. We love Clinton, he's
Right.
a
Right.
black
First black
president.
president, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Meanwhile, we gave the industry with batons.
right. Right.
The sister, I'm sorry, her name escapes me. There's just so many names to remember. But just recently, we had a sister killed in her kitchen.
Oh yeah, Sister
And here we
Massey.
got,
Mm-hmm.
our
Mm-hmm.
president is a nice Democrat.
Right.
Actually, even our first black president's second in command is in the highest office in the land, and still we're getting slaughtered in our kitchens.
Right.
So what is it? What is this?
Yeah.
Either or. It's no strategy. There's no strategy in it. It's not strategy. It's apathy.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely apathy, and it's seems to me, and I'm trying to be as nice as possible, but it's a lack of any type of political understanding, historically and now, because we get so, it feels like we get so, especially nowadays, probably since Clinton, right? We have become so enamored with our candidate that we become fans, and you add that on to the fact that we've had Obama for 2 years, and now possibly Kamala Harris, and the fact that they look like us, we totally ignore the we totally ignore the the genocides that they are responsible for, the foreign policy that causes other nations to be destitute. But hey, that person looks like us. It's
But
black girl
that's the
magic, or it's
again.
this black excellence. You know what I'm saying? And it's
Yes,
I hate how we
yes,
get
yes.
caught up in that.
So yeah, to the point of um again, give the baby their binky. Here's your pacifier.
Yeah,
You want we rely so much on these black firsts.
yeah, right.
So, and these black firsts are kind of doled out to us,
Hmm.
by the system.
Hmm.
And this notion of black exceptionalism.
Hmm.
We talk about, oh, this black person was the first to do this, and this black person was the first to do that. Meanwhile, your uncle is like a mathematical genius.
Right, right.
Again, because of his situation and have the access, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
So they promote certain people
Hmm.
who they deem to be appropriate figureheads.
Right.
And what we are seeing is a blackface on white imperialism.
Yep.
To that point, and I have to say, I'm a student of Dr. Amos Wilson, so a lot of the things I'm saying I've just recently been studying of his, but he was making the point of we are worse now than we were prior to the 60s.
Mm.
Now we have how many black mayors, how many police chiefs?
Right.
Right. And so whenever we are assaulted in the streets, what do? We tried out the black police chief, and
Hmm.
he legitimizes it and said he's going to have a very thorough investigation. And we are, oh, okay, it's a black person, and we take that visual cue as kind of, again, a pacifier to let us know, okay, there's a black man on the job, so we're safe.
Mm.
However, that's the trick, because there's literally, a hand up his ass. This
Right.
is, you know,
Yeah,
the
he's
puppet of white imperialism that
absolutely.
is being used now as a symbol to let you know, oh, it's okay. It's a black man.
Hmm.
So, now we've got black president, maybe another black president, a black vice president, so many mayors, so many police chiefs, so many, Colin Powell.
Yeah.
We even have a black
Condoleezza
justice.
Rice.
We have a black justice sitting on the highest court of the land, don't we?
Yep.
And
Clarence
yet we are
Thomas.
impotent. Yet
Right.
we are impotent.
Hmm.
And so to
And
that point
Ketanji
now, what
Brown.
we have what we say, we can quantify our progress with these numbers,
Hmm.
but there is no quality. There's no
Right.
quality improvement.
Right.
There's no improvement in the quality of our lives, and certainly no advancement in the struggle. We just have these kind of, you know, pictures that we can hang up on the wall.
Yep. Yep.
Mm.
I know you probably remember, like, when Obama, during his presidency, you started to see um a lot of I remember watching the news and seeing that there was a growing number of black children being named Barack or Obama.
Mm-hmm.
They
Yeah, yeah,
began
yeah.
yeah, they they began to put his face on
Man,
posters with Martin and
bro,
Malcolm. And
I
like,
can't
yo.
lie. I can't lie. So long I've been politically educated.
Hmm.
I was working nights
Hmm.
when he was, to be elected. So I came home
Hmm.
from a night shift. It was like 7 in the morning. My son met me at the door,
Hmm.
and he was like, "Mom, you're gonna go vote?" And I was like, "To vote, you know." But what did I do? I took myself out and I voted,
Hmm.
you know. And when I got to the polling place, yeah, black people, young and old, wheelchairs, the whole nine. Everybody was outside. It was a party. It was a,
Right. Right.
it was a family reunion of sorts. Because ultimately, the people they and see, this should be significant to us as revolutionaries.
Hmm.
The people will rally around blackness.
Yes.
People understand and they recognize the value and the importance in
Yes. That's a great
solidarity.
point. Hmm.
But it's only when they're moved emotionally,
Hmm.
because we
Hmm.
lack organization. So we're relying now just on kind of like, people's sensory feelings.
Yes. Yes.
That's why you will see us time and again. We rise up, we rise up, we rise up against injustice. We
Hmm.
rise up in solidarity against, you know, the issue of the moment.
Hmm.
You know, so this should be a lesson to us that yes, the people are thirsty and
Hmm.
they do want to see an overturning of this
Hmm.
system.
Yes.
But so to that point, yeah, we all went outside. We all voted for Barack. We knew what it was. We knew
Right.
the nigga was gonna come in straight. Like we knew
Right.
because he
Right.
didn't have any option but to.
Right.
Because that's what's that's what the role is necessitated upon.
Hmm. Hmm.
You're you're the head of white imperialism. Like
Right.
you must,
Right.
you must. Now you can hoop, and your family is lit.
Yeah.
Your daughters are so cute.
Right.
You had a beautiful dog.
It's
Like
but
I fucks with it,
it's
but
that
ultimately,
and that's that emotional connection that we
uh,
got had for that administration is just because we had never seen that before, right? But that's
right.
what I wanted to ask you. But now we have, since we have seen that before, right? I remember that there was a debate between Dr. Marimba Ani and Leonard Jeffries, but it was a lot of other people involved as well. Those are the two names that I remember, and it was, is Obama good for us, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so fast forward to now, um, I don't know. It's like the new thing that I've been hearing, just kind of keeping my ear to like what people are talking about on these news channels or podcasts. The term of the day seems to be harm reduction, right? And the idea that, you know, obviously we're not rocking with Trump. You know what I'm saying? Like he is what it is. He is what he is, right? But this idea
Yeah.
that anything to keep him out of anything to keep him out of office, um, so Kamala has to be the choice. That's pretty. I've been seeing that from people that, you know, are normally considered radical. Um,
Yeah.
and so it just feels like, did we learn from the past? And
No, we fail to learn from the past because we don't remember the past because we don't study the past.
mm,
It's the again, it goes back to um, you know, we saw now the creation of AFRICOM, like the incursion of AFRICOM into the continent under a black president.
yep.
You know what I mean? There is no harm reduction in the context of capitalism. We are seeing this system which is providing us two preset options. You can have the beef or you can have the chicken. We
Mm,
don't want to talk about vegetarian. We don't want to hear about, you know,
hmm.
it's
Yeah.
Lent.
Hmm.
These are your two options, period. And they know, like, it's like, when you are with your children and you say, do you want this healthy food option or would you like this healthy food option? You just don't give them any option outside of what you're presenting.
Right.
And that's what we're seeing with imperialism. So there can be no harm reduction
Hmm.
strategy. There is no strategy, no effective strategy that entails us participating in the Euro colonial system.
Right.
The only thing that we can do is divest. The only course towards what we deem African liberation is for us to give real consideration to a black state.
Hmm.
And since we've already got some black states, it would behoove us to lean
Hmm.
upon the fact that we do have land.
Right.
We have this youth now, I believe, was he in, I don't want to misspeak, but his last name is Traore. I keep seeing his
Hmm.
name. He keeps coming up because he's evading all these coup attempts and assassination attempts.
Hmm. Hmm.
He's kicked the French out of his country.
Absolutely.
You know, um, I want to wheel it back because you made mention of Trump, and I'd like to say that I would like to espouse something that my son actually said, which is that I want another Trump presidency
Hmm.
because under Trump presidency, folks are going to be so uncomfortable
Hmm.
that they're going to have to make some decisions.
Right.
every time we have a Democratic leader, we go back into this level of apathy.
Hmm.
You know, we mobilize, we get out the vote, you know, we elect our chosen Black person, and then we sit down. When we had a Trump presidency, that's when that's when you could know for sure who was riding with you and who wasn't riding with
Right.
you, you know, especially on the 8 years of Black presidency.
Yeah.
So, to the point about is broad good for us? Yes and no. What we suffer from, though, is that backlash after 8 years of a Black man being in office.
Mm.
Now we swung in the opposite direction and we got Trump.
Yep.
Now we're forced to make some very difficult decisions. Now, because of Trump's ineptitude, if you're a student of the world, you will know Americans pulled way back from foreign policy.
Oh yeah.
To the extent now where conversations have been had, alliances have been formed, exclusive of our engagement.
Right. Right.
And so to that point, we know that a Trump presidency is going to be pretty apathetic. He's going to stir the country up pretty badly.
Hmm.
Everybody's going to be pretty pissed off, and possibly we might have a civil war. Who knows? But not going to be doing is appointing an ambassador to, to this little African nation who couldn't even point at a map.
Mm. Right.
And so when you're under the radar of white imperialism, and certainly the United States, when you're just not even on the map insofar as they're concerned, you have the opportunity to build.
Hmm.
And so we have to give consideration to how we will strategize.
Right.
So, do I want another Black president? No, for what? Do I want a Trump presidency? I mean, why not?
Mm.
Again, it's two sides of the same coin. It's only
Hmm.
going to be a little bit worse than the other.
Hmm.
And if you're a revolutionary and you're strategizing, you want a president who's not going to involve himself with what the fuck you got going on over there. He's
Right.
just going to be caught up over here, kind of, I don't know. I don't even know what he did for his presidency except kind of stir up, white nationalists.
Yeah,
But certainly,
that's the main takeaway that I have from his term is he stirred up the white nationalist sentiment and made him a little bit louder, but at the same time, um, Obama put us to sleep, and
well, yeah, every time,
Donald
every
Trump was the
time,
alarm clock. You know what I mean?
because we take these appointments and these kind of symbols and uh these pacifiers that they throw at us, and they're very effective
Hmm.
because we all felt like we were really safe for 8 years.
Right.
Meanwhile, Somalia was turned upside down.
Right. But
So
no,
yeah.
there's something I want to ask you though, because a lot of the people that are extremely vocal now are people that are attempting to delineate themselves from the rest of the diaspora and the continent. And so in doing, I
Mhm.
know it's terrible, right? But in doing, it's so short-sighted and stupid. But in doing so, the only other thing left to do, obviously, is assimilate. And so they don't care about any type of foreign policy that may affect Black or brown people abroad. And they don't even see how what happens abroad affects us here, like the connection between what's happening in Palestine and IDF soldiers training here in different cop cities and training with the NYPD and them being buddy buddy. Like they don't see those type of connections. It seems like we are full on. I'm not gonna say we because that ain't never been me. They are on full assimilationist mode to where even the ones that aren't delineators, right? Even the ones that aren't delineators, I don't know if you have been watching, but there's been a recent phenomena happening on um, that where it was in I think in Chicago, right ahead of when the DNC plans to come on out there. There was a man who had he had his face covered, and he said that he was in solidarity with Palestine, and he threatened the DNC, saying that they were going to disrupt the party, so to speak. Um, and so what happened right after this set off like this online war between not all African Americans, some African Americans who are Kamala Harris supporters and
Mm-hmm.
pro-Palestinian or Palestinian solidarity protesters. And thinking about our history from Martin, uh, Martin began to see somewhat, but Malcolm especially, SNCC, the Panthers, and how we always made it a point to be in solidarity with Palestine and other oppressed groups. To see this back and forth was so disheartening. And you have these people who call themselves elders and saying, we not, you know, we got to get this black woman in office. Y'all are being anti-black, keeping us from, and it's like, yo, is our need for representation that bad where it's like, yo, we don't care if the politics are revolutionary. We don't care if the politics are going to further the destruction of the global South and even our own neighborhoods. As long as we have a black person in front, um, it seems like that's where we are. And but to see that back and forth, that was so disheartening. It was extremely disheartening because it's like, yo, we've we're we've we're way out at this point. like it's
And
like
I
it's
know
like,
so
yo,
much,
what are we on, man?
so much. Um, I'm a person, I feel like it's anti-black that we letting Kamala Harris slide. Like I feel like that's
Hmm.
anti-black.
Right.
Black is why aren't we identifying race traitors and calling them out
Mm.
and putting a red flag on them and making people know like, nah, don't support them.
Right.
We're so quick to cancel people. Like, why don't we cancel these,
Yeah.
these people committing active genocide? Like,
Right.
oh, so when people call me anti-black for, not, oh, I'm sorry.
No, you good. You good. Um.
Yeah, so certainly when we talk about anti-black, we have to define the parameters of what is actually anti-black. And certainly
Mm,
being anti-black is supporting policies that are actively taking the lives of and incarcerating a great many black people.
right.
So Kamala Harris, by definition, is anti-black. This is the top cop. With her
Hmm.
own mouth, she has stated that she didn't want to uh, release low-level offenders because then she would not have adequate adequate staff to man her, prison
Mm,
workforce, as it were.
mm.
She's saying these things explicitly, so it's kind of ridiculous to even. And
Atiyah,
then
but check.
certainly our elders.
Look how crazy we are, right? Because to that point, I saw somebody say, and like it went viral. Somebody said, "Well, they probably deserve to be locked up anyway." Look at how our politics will
how
just
quickly we
change.
will how
Yeah,
quickly we will change gears and say, well, cousin Pookie, whose money you putting books on, who
right,
got popped for like 3 grams of weed in Iowa.
right.
Now, he's doing like 4 years and butts.
Mm,
You know what I mean? Like
hmm.
we will legitimize anything to kind of, it's the cognitive dissonance that we create to kind of legitimize our ill thinking because again, as Dr. Amos Wilson said, we are mentally ill.
Mm,
We have to be to live in
hmm.
this society.
Hmm.
We have adopted these maladaptive strategies. One of them, the primary one of them being, which is like, I say this so ironically, but like my personal fave, this disassociation with the continent.
Yeah.
You'll have people with the broadest lips and the blackest skin and, the kinkiest coils in their hair sitting and telling you that they are Native Americans and referencing an AI picture,
Yeah.
you know,
It's a
or,
some sick people.
some of our greats like Dr. Alvin Van Sertima, who stated and was able to establish that there was an African presence in pre-colonial Mexico, pre-colonial South America.
Hmm.
I don't doubt the scholarship of this man.
Hmm.
However, when we are not able to properly assess the information that we are being provided, because we're not given these tools to kind of assess the information.
Yeah.
So you see this information and you say, okay, well, the African presence was in South America. That means that we are here. And now we're kind of like, we intermarried. And so now we're indigenous.
Right.
No, the man said that we made such an impact to the people. They were so overwrought with our uniqueness
And and they so
that we
even
became subjects of praise.
yeah, those
You
those
know,
people, they haven't even read the book because they make arguments that Van
correct,
Sertima did not make.
correct,
Um,
correct, correct,
and
correct.
they'll even go so far to disassociate themselves with Africa to the point where Van Sertima, he obviously said that whenever he theorized an pre-colonial African presence in America, that it was an African presence in America. So these people are so they're filled with so much self-hate that they have gone so far as to say that they have always been in America,
Indigenous to this place.
yet
But
as
it's
if
no accident.
right,
It is no accident.
right,
We're seeing very juvenile levels of thinking.
yes,
That's
yes,
essentially what it is.
yes, it is.
Um, we are not provided the tools in our school system, certainly, to
Mm-hmm.
dissect argument, to understand the way in which genetics will represent itself, the way in which we can trace these things through the human family. We aren't given these tools,
Mm-hmm.
and certainly um, in our way of inebriating ourselves and dulling our senses and devoting so much time to recreational chilling, we don't build those tools as we grow into our adulthood.
Right.
And again, it's a maladaptive strategy. So when you identify, we still are on this African booty scratcher, spear chucker shit.
Yeah.
We're still on it.
Yeah.
And we just kind of prettied it up by saying now, oh, well, and this is some, philosophy. The Hebrew Israelites said that, the 12 tribes came from Nicaragua and so on and so forth. And not
Right.
even really understanding the difference between nation and genetics and
Yes.
how those things work.
Right.
And so the maladaptive strategy that we've adopted is just disassociation from all things African.
Mm-hmm.
Any way that we can, no matter the absurdity of it,
Right.
you know. And so I know that it's not, I hope, people don't come in now, jump in my inbox and cancel me for saying this, but still, we are spending the most amount of money per capita as a race towards products to give us an appearance other than African.
Mm.
From the bleaching, which, there's like a scale in the Black community. If you're bleaching, then you're, oh, well, that's really frowned upon. But this 30-inch Yaki or whatever they call them things, that's approved.
Right.
Because the sisters really went to, we went to war for that, for our ability to adorn ourselves.
Hmm.
So certainly all adornment is not emulation of the oppressor. But we do understand that so much of the ways in which we choose to adorn ourselves is to adopt their appearance because on a very, very, very deep level and in very, very, very many ways, we are showing that we are disassociating ourselves from the idea of Africa and the low status that the African person has in the world today. It can't
Mm-hmm.
be stated any other way than that. We are in a very low place collectively.
Yep.
These little blips and these little exceptions that they allow to kind of break through that ceiling, notwithstanding, collectively, we are mentally ill. We are very physically ill.
Mm.
And we are not doing what is necessary to advance our survival.
Right.
It's just, and it's not accidental.
No.
Because in order to maintain the system of white imperialism, we must be this way.
Yes.
We
Yes.
must not understand our capacity for greatness. We must not understand that this is kind of an engineered position that we're in.
Oh, absolutely.
And again, to give a nod to our ancestors, we are a creation of white imperialism. We were literally brought here like cattle and interbred in such a way. That's why you'll see African Americans kind of look a little bit different than everybody else. You can kind of say, but they look weird. Well, why is that? Because that's where you see the biggest interbreeding of all these various ethnic groups that are represented on the continent.
Hmm.
Whereas in a place like Jamaica, you might be able to see, okay, they kept that Asante bloodline,
Hmm.
down through generations because they were just up in the hills, you know,
Yeah.
or certainly on the continent, you can see very strong features associated with regions. But here in the States, we are a mashup of all these things.
Right.
And that's because of our genetic admixture. And
Hmm.
so when we talk about our genes and the way that that represents on a physical level, we have to also give a nod to our mentality, our mind, our
Hmm.
entire way of being, assessing the world was created in this place.
Right.
You know,
And
what the behaviors that were encouraged, the behaviors that were discouraged, you know, our use of language. We're
yes,
speaking the oppressive language, so I can't even really speak to you in a way that is one, confidential, or two, innate to the thoughts that I'm trying to express to you.
absolutely. Right. Right.
So we're a creation of this devil.
Hmm.
And with that, um, with that, we are now seeing, how that looks now,
Yeah.
400, 600 years out.
We're seeing that
You know.
expressed in all aspects of
Mhm.
American society. I think one thing that we fail to do that which would help orient us in the right direction is understanding and seeing ourselves as a colonized people. Um,
Right.
we have there will
We're
always
unique in our colonization
yes,
because we
because
were brought here to their thing.
absolutely. And so that means
and
we're close. We are right next to them, right?
and that's
Um,
why I'm saying, and that's why our level is so much more toxic
yes,
when it comes
yes,
to how
yes,
sick we are. And I
yes.
would like to also point now to South Africa.
Hmm. Oh
Talk
yeah,
about the plight and the struggles that you see in South Africa,
and how they're
from
going at
crimes against
Nigerians
women,
and
its proximity to
to
whiteness. Whenever
whiteness.
you see that we are
Yeah,
close in proximity to them,
yeah,
right in front of them,
yeah,
oh, we're sick, boss. It
yeah,
don't get no sicker
yeah,
than that.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then now, because of our proximity to whiteness, and again, because of the resources that we have, because of our proximity to whiteness, what do? We broadcast it to the world.
Mm.
And we create now this image of blackness that the rest of the world takes on. From like London to um Ghana, they got
Hmm.
all these pictures of Tupac. And I'm like, Tupac, like, no, no slight to Pac, but like, bro, of all the people,
Right, right,
Pac,
right, right,
you
right,
know.
right.
So now we export our toxicity and it becomes like this really weird
Yeah,
uh
I saw,
mashup where
I
we're like
saw,
complicit in our own thing.
I saw like a it was like a mini YouTube documentary or something, but I can't remember whether it was Ghana, and I think it actually was, but they were talking about how like they have a and like this one town had a lean problem with the youth now. And you know where that
Yeah,
came from. You know exactly where that came from. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like, right. And so, like you said,
yeah. I think that was Ghana, or it might have been Kenya.
okay.
But yeah, certainly
Hmm.
they were English speaking, and I do
Hmm.
recall that.
Hmm.
And we're exporting all these maladaptive patterns.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Right. Right. And it's yeah, I mean we are, and it's sad, but as you stated, um, we're right here next to the colonizer. We're right here next to um, the one that has enslaved the world since the inception of its nation. Um, and
and
there's a
there's a certain level of observation and control that comes with that too.
mm,
Because whereas like the European might send like an army phalanx and they're kind of monitoring this area and so on and so forth. We're actually embedded in the army phalanx. So every which way you turn,
yeah,
you know, you're effectively surrounded.
right.
And so after our so-called emancipation from technical enslavement,
Hmm.
nobody was like, oh well, do you need any supportive services? How can I,
Right.
what about your mental health? We just kind of
Right.
had to carry on
Yeah.
and now, be traumatized in all these other subsequent ways.
Dr. DeGroy's book Post Traumatic Slave Syndrome. It's like that should be, like stuff. If there was really about rehabilitation for us, you know what I'm saying, and this country wanted to, we know that we obviously know that that's some
Right, right,
bullshit.
right,
But
right.
I'm just saying, even if it was right, like it would have to be so much undoing of colonial thought. That's why I tell people all the time, like, I'm not really with all of the anti-racist stuff that y'all be pushing, especially that got really popular during COVID, because anti-racism is one thing, right? But regardless to whether you like me or not, I look at things from an anti-colonial, anti-imperial, because that colonial aspect is what's going to give you power over me, right? Um,
Yes.
uh, we are. It is futile trying to change the hearts of a white supremacist who don't
Yeah, we
like
consume
anybody. Yeah,
ourselves a lot. We
it's like, what are we
consume so
doing?
much. We consume so much time and effort trying to play this game of, oh well, we think we could fuck ourselves to freedom, don't we?
Yeah,
Look at
facts.
my little mixed baby. Look at this proximity to whiteness I just did. You understand? But now you financing the white woman for the next 18.
Right,
You see it?
right.
So we think that we can appeal, like you said earlier, appeal to their morality, but we know that's absent.
Hmm.
But we think if we just, and that's what we get these like kind of like these apologists and these, well, you niggas basically need to wear a suit.
Yeah, yeah,
You if you would just pull up your pants.
yeah.
But it doesn't have anything to do with that.
Right.
It has nothing at all to do with appealing to them on any sort of level, ethical or otherwise. The only way that we will have freedom is when we purposefully educate ourselves and organize ourselves towards the point of acquiring power.
Yes,
This is the
yes.
only way in which we will
Right.
extricate ourselves from this position so long.
Hmm.
We have been begging these people so long.
Hmm.
We have sent our children to be battered in their schools.
Yes.
We thought that that was an effective tactic.
Right.
And
Yeah,
I
we
mean,
did.
surely we did desegregate and we cannot sit beside them and eat their bland foods at their lunch counters.
Yes.
Surely we can. But yet and still we are still being murdered in the street with impunity. Still we have,
But even look,
oh my God,
but
countless
even with the school
people
system,
jailed.
but even like you just mentioned with the school system, even with that, we've integrated into a school system, and now they have control of the curriculum within that, as far as like
What did
public school,
Malcolm told?
like
Malcolm told
Florida,
us
like.
already.
Mhm.
Malcolm told us already.
Right.
He said you are foolish to send your children to get educated.
And I know,
And then now, so many years after his death, here we are sitting like fools, crying, saying, they don't want to teach us about CRT.
right,
Nigga,
right,
you should have been teaching your own children
right.
all along. You
Facts.
should have been teaching your own children all along. You expect for the oppressor to tell them
Who they
this is
are
what we
and
did
their
to you.
history and their politics, right?
Because if they told them, the fact that they do not tell them and the fact that the youth don't have any connection to that knowledge is
Hmm.
what makes it so easy now for this kind of like this fantasy to be proper, this multicultural society. Oh,
Yeah.
we're all one. We all, you know, they've erased the idea, they've erased the culture, the cultural root that is the fact that we were integral to the establishment of this country.
Hmm.
We sacrificed so much,
Hmm.
and therefore we have every right to be at the head of leadership when it
Yeah.
comes to directing the country.
Right.
Well,
Right.
you think I'm going to teach you that? Why
Absolutely
would I
not.
tell you that?
Absolutely
Why would
not.
I tell?
Mhm.
That is not an effective strategy.
Right. Right.
That's not an effective strategy. So we're consistently begging for a seat at this table, and we're given a seat at the table,
Hmm.
but we're
Some
not
of us.
given the same portion of food, and we're certainly not given, you know.
Hmm. And look, like so, and that's the thing, right? This whole idea of assimilation, whether it's at the highest level of politics, or all the way down to the police force, right? It, as you mentioned earlier, we can look at. I mean, when we look at Freddie Gray, half of those police were black, right? When we look at uh, cop city, that no matter how many protesters in Atlanta, those black politicians in Atlanta are still pro cop and pro cop city. And uh, so this idea of assimilation we're going to assimilate ourselves into hell, because
It
if you,
happens.
right. And
Mm.
I'm dumbfounded at times. But again, as you mentioned, and how Dr. Amos Wilson talked about, we are sick people, and it seems like we have no memory of not only who we are in our Africanity, but even what our people in the 60s and 50s and 40s, what
No.
they did. We don't even have a memory of that, right? And I think all of these things help to disorient us and think that the direction we need to go is assimilation, when it's as long as we
So that
it
was the initial tactic that, the Dr. King, when the bus boycotts and so forth were going on, that was the goal. And I would also like to say that you and I have no concept of what it meant to actually live in a segregated
right,
South
right.
or a segregated United States. So we must actually as well show some grace to our ancestors, because certainly they changed the course of not just the United States, but consequently the world,
Hmm.
with their goal towards breaking segregation. They thought that that was an effective tactic, and certainly it was at the time. It has been our failing. It has been our failing that we have not reassessed the situation.
Yeah, yeah.
This is what, we discussed when we're talking about materialism.
Hmm.
We have to look at what is around us
Hmm.
and recalibrate.
Right, right.
If we say, okay, well, we've now integrated the schools. This is all fucked up. They done confused the shit out of the kids. The
Right.
kids run around, the kids don't have any more. Oh no.
Hmm.
That was our opportunity to say, okay, y'all, let's we got to reel this back in. This isn't making, and certainly we have our organizations that were doing that, who emphasize homeschooling, who emphasize, the Nation of Islam has, the University of Islam, and so on and so forth. But our failing is always that we do not recalibrate, we
Yes.
do not reassess.
Right. Right. And
So
I think that's a really great point. Because we always, as a people, we have to continue, or at least start at this point, as you mentioned, to recalibrate, to reassess, to analyze, to critique. You know, we've gotten
and
to a
self
point.
criticism.
Yes, yes, right. And so our own actions and the actions of these people in power that a lot of us have become fans of. Because have you noticed, like, I think I would even respect it more if someone was like, "Yo, I don't want another 4 years of Trump. I'm a vote Harrison, but I'm not a fan, right?" And when she's in there, I'm gonna do whatever I can to hold her to task about the issues that I care about. But it's not even that. We have become fans of these politicians to where any critique or any analysis of their policies that uh, that shows out to be a negative, right? Oh, you're gonna be called anti-black. You're going to be called somebody who is. I saw a brother that I know personally get called a Russian bot, right? And he's like he's he's like, but he's a Pan African brother who's working on his PhD, right? Like but he was taught obviously, and you know the value of being critical of things, right? Like we don't have a healthy enough amount of skepticism. You know what I'm saying? Like we should be as
We do,
Mhm.
but we exert it in all the wrong places.
Right, right, right.
Suckers is hella skeptical,
Yeah.
right?
Right,
I'm
right,
a
right.
respiratory therapist, bro.
Uh,
Right. All during COVID. Well, not all during COVID, because I had a baby during COVID
mhm.
as well. But for part of COVID, I was actively in the hospital, seeing people with my very own eyes. Dot, dot, dot.
Yeah.
Gone, gone.
Yeah.
5 a night sometimes.
Mm.
You know, and I
Hmm.
have to be flippant about it because it was such a trauma.
Right.
But certainly I was seeing this. I understood, the disease process. I understood that there were going to be lingering effects. The conversation became about, well, who cook it? It doesn't
Mm.
matter. Everyone's sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where the tomato can go, we're all vomiting. And then now you have people, I don't want to wear my mask. I'm skeptical. I might.
Yeah.
We have all kinds of skeptics in our community. People,
Mhm.
you'll say something that's obvious about folks, but I don't know about
Yeah.
that. You
Right.
know, and what we do not exert any skepticism about is what the imperialist tells us.
Mm.
You know, because again, we've been programmed by this imperialist. This imperialist has fed us. He gave us his hand-me-downs. He put a little thatch roof over our heads and look, I gave you a house. So there's a big paternalism that's existent still.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when the imperialist says, anything, this is the new nigga, this is the brand new nigga we want y'all to vote for. This is not oppressive.
Right.
Niggas prepackaged
Yeah.
and she eats hot sauce. Don't you love it?
Yeah.
All skepticism goes out the window because a white man elected her or a white man chose her to be his vice president.
Hmm.
She's got all the degrees from all of these warmongering educational institutions that,
Hmm.
we hold in high esteem. And so she checks off all of the boxes for what we look for as good little, proletariats.
Yeah.
And so therefore we will choose her.
Hmm.
Without any skepticism. Why should we be skeptic of the white man? But again, our continued ignorance has everything to do with the fact that we are miseducated and uneducated.
Right.
And it takes a certain type of individual to pursue education.
Yes. Yes.
And by that, I don't mean acquiring degrees. Certainly, we don't want to belittle the time and skill involved in doing that.
Absolutely. Mm.
But I'm talking about the education that's necessary for you to learn how to think,
Hmm.
for you to recognize that inherently our thinking is corrupted and that we must repair it.
Yeah.
And to that point, that's also an exercise in luxury. I
Mm.
can do that because I have a job.
Hmm.
It allows me a certain amount of time, and I
Hmm.
have good meals, and I have a source of transportation, and I live in a home.
Hmm.
So I have time now to say to myself, oh, I'm going to pursue this hobby and
Yeah.
study up and learn what I can about my people.
Yeah. I said the same thing the other day.
Yeah.
Capitalism takes has us spending so much time just trying to secure the basic necessities, food, clothing, and shelter, and any type of where a lot of times people are, they're spent, by the end of the day,
Oh goodness.
and they
Know, you work them jobs, you work in six shifts a day,
yeah,
but then
yeah.
you got to pick your shorty up, or you got to
Hmm.
drop them off and pick them up. So your day
Hmm.
starts at like 4 and it ends
Hmm.
like around midnight.
Hmm.
That's not an accident. What do we have as a commodity to sell on the capitalist market? The only thing that you and I can sell on the capitalist market
Is our
is our
labor.
labor,
Yep.
is our time,
Hmm.
is our time. And so if we are making a very low wage, we have to do what? Sell more time.
Yep.
And in that, it's a self-perpetuating system of creating, slave wages,
Yes.
or I'm sorry, wage slaves.
Yes. Hmm.
So all of these things, we're seeing increased prices all around, inflation up to 100% for food items, rice, potato. Your wage is stagnant. You're exerting your human right to reproduce. So you have children now that you have to support.
Hmm.
So you have to dedicate your time to these things.
Yeah.
And for my ass to come along telling you now about, yo, my brother, have you studied up on
Yeah,
diabetes?
yeah. It's like, man, it's like, man, yeah, man.
Shut up.
Yeah, yeah. Real talk,
I'm
real
on my
talk.
face. I need a solution now. I need something that you can
Yes,
Assist
something
me with
tangible,
in my
something
conditions right now.
yes, my material
Yeah,
conditions right now. And like you said, I need people to really understand that is by design. It is no accident. And as long as
it's
they
the nature
can
of the system.
yep, as long as they
The nature of the
the
system.
more they occupy our time just trying to survive, the less time we have to reflect on things that we're talking about here. And like you said, it is a luxury in many cases. A lot of people don't know where their next meal is coming from. A lot of people are housing insecure. Just a lot of, we are faced with a lot of different things going on. Our mental health, where somebody might not even be able to pay attention like they
Be in the
normally could.
headspace to be even
Yeah,
in focus.
right. And again, like you said, and on top of all of that, we're asking people to um become as, educated about what's happening to the best of their abilities. And the only and it's not out of a sense of any type of intellectual elitism. It's like this is like really the only thing that we have, only thing that we can do at this stage of where we are is to educate and organize. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't mean that one has to be, the the greatest black studies scholar known to man, because it's not, I don't think that's required, right?
Frequently will not be that person who's even doing the work.
Right. Yeah. Right. Right.
You
Right.
know, our ancestor Kwame Ture would frequently talk about, how he rose up through the ranks of the Black intelligentsia. He was
Mm-hmm.
already educated when he
Mm-hmm.
began his work with SNCC.
Mm-hmm.
He was a student,
Yeah. At Howard.
and so to that point, um, it's necessary for those of us who do deem that we are, it's like you can't, nothing is cool to say. We can't say we're conscious again.
Yeah.
What ourselves now?
Right. I still, you know what? I ain't gonna let them take conscience away, man. Cause you know what I mean.
You
It's
got
like,
going.
nah,
You
I
got
ain't
going.
going. I ain't going, man. I ain't going. They took woke and all of that
Um,
other stuff, right? Like, so they can't have everything.
right. So to that point, for those of us who have identified, yes, I have taken it upon myself to perform this act of understanding, and I would like to do something important.
Hmm.
What we have to do is identify that place that we can fit in,
Mm,
that place. So certainly our activism cannot stop at the book or at having, these conversations and
hmm.
podcasts and, you know, because what that does, it radicalizes a certain amount of people. You might get some new viewers who are exposed to your mindset and so on and so forth. But then what will they do?
Right.
Um, I had an experience during the Floyd protests here in Chicago. I was assisting the youth with organizing. We organized some of the biggest protests in Chicago, and we mobilized the people. Everybody
Hmm.
was on lockdown from COVID, and they were bored, so they came into the street,
Yeah.
and it was a beautiful thing. But what occurred to me, and it's one of my greatest regrets. We mobilized all these people, but they left with nothing.
Mm.
We gave them nothing to do
Hmm.
following that organizing or
Right.
following that mobilization.
Yeah.
They took to the streets,
Hmm.
they marched up and down, we
Hmm.
stopped, we danced, so on and so forth. We may have even exchanged a couple of numbers, but we gave no one a task, something to focus on, um, a way in which now we can turn this mobilization into an organized effort towards a thing.
Right.
And so we get so caught up in just the elegance of, oh yes, I read a few books, and oh, isn't this
Right.
great? And
Right.
and and you niggas don't know shit. And we
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
we miss the whole point, that the reason that we are educating ourselves historically um, is so that we can now engage in revolutionary acts.
Absolutely.
And so, to the point of, so many of our people are food insecure, suffering from health issues, so on and so forth. If we are capable of doing so, and I find that I am capable of doing so, my role then is now to support the health of people,
Yes.
to support the lung health,
Yeah.
to maybe save a few babies
Hmm.
for the struggle. to maybe increase the quality of life, or improve the quality of life and improve the length of life.
Yes.
Um, so each in our own capacity, we must bring something more to the table than kind of this, discussion about, oh, did you know about Mansa Musa?
Right.
You know, it's important that we know our history.
Yeah.
Again, I have to give a nod to Amos Wilson, but he said something that was very profound, which is that in the history of a person, and in my personal history, at a certain time, I learned how to stop drinking from the breast and I started to take food. At a
Mm.
certain time, I started to walk.
Mm-hmm.
At a certain time, I started to understand and form words.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a person that goes into a concussive state and they lose that history,
Mm-hmm.
then they lose the ability to perform those tasks.
Yeah.
And so, as a people, when we don't understand our history, when we don't understand how we can now go from crawling to standing to walking to battle, if
Hmm.
we don't understand that process and how we used to, like how,
Mm-hmm.
if that muscle memory isn't there,
Mm-hmm.
then we collectively will be sick.
Yeah.
And so the exercise of learning our history and studying about our greats is not just to stroke our ego,
Right.
because certainly our ego is very bruised. We're all bruised and battered. We're
We're all
all fucked up.
absolutely all of us.
But the ego be damned. It's not about us being having like these feel good stories and fables to tell the children. It's
Mm.
about using that history as a way to inform the way in which we can now strategize for our current situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I think and yeah, as well, very well said. And the feel good aspect is what brings them in, but in order to get anything tangible out of applying what we got from the greats, like you said, it has to be addressing the material conditions of our people is first and foremost, right? Like anytime I've ever fed anyone that was food insecure, they never asked me about, do you know what Dr. King was doing in 61? Like they don't give a damn, right? Like, and I
Right,
wouldn't
right,
either
right.
because we've all, like been up and down financially. And when your stomach growling, you're not thinking about that, right? And I appreciate you for even bringing that to light, because I mean that's real, and we have to be sensitive to where our people are. But I also feel like at times we need to give them love, and we need to give them tough love, because there are some people that don't have those same type of excuses as to why
Yes.
you
And
know
they
what I
are
mean.
busy.
Yeah.
And they are busy. And
Right.
there are those of us that are willfully ignorant.
Yeah.
And though we understand why,
Hmm.
they're still dangerous.
Right.
They're so dangerous.
Yep.
They're disseminating these false ideas. They're taking on these ideas that are like cooked up in right wing think tanks.
Yes.
This whole what is I try not to remember things that that infuriate me, but these black people, what were we were calling ourselves
Oh
ADOS.
yeah, ADOS and FBA. Yeah, a
Yeah,
bunch of
what is this? What
right.
is this? This was created by the European. You niggas just tack on to it
Yeah.
and,
Hey,
and claiming it like
let's start
now,
our history with slavery. You know what I'm
right,
saying? Like
right,
what?
and trying to be all like, oh, we not gonna share our reparations with you Haitians. Nigga, you
Yeah.
ain't getting no reparations. No way. What are you talking about? You've heard it, right?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
Oh yeah, you got to be able to establish your lineage down to the slave plantations, which shows their lack of ignorance because they burned the records. You fool!
right.
You
And
have no ties to this land. It was purposeful. You're not going to be able to trace your ancestral history back through their documents
absolutely
because
not.
it was a bill of sale.
Yeah, you a property. You didn't. It's like,
So,
what part of this are we not? It's, but yeah, it was a what's her name? She was in a right wing think tank. Yvette Carnell, uh, Tariq Nasheed followed her blueprint,
uh,
and now you
and
have what we have.
I recently saw that Tariq Nasheed, he gave some interview when he was talking about how London said they didn't want me. Uh, Basically, he was gonna go show like Hidden Colors 55 in London, and they was like, nah, nigga. And furthermore, you're persona non grata. Don't even come over here.
Mm.
But what Tariq Nasheed doesn't know, because Tariq Nasheed is not politically educated and doesn't understand the thing, is that when he goes to London, it's going to be all African people there,
Right, right, right,
all West Indian people there.
right,
And here you are touting this ADOS BS,
right.
and the people that you're professing to spread knowledge to, you've created a division between yourselves, and you don't even know who's going to be on the receiving end of the knowledge when you arrive in London.
Yep.
Because that's how limited we are in our you know
Yeah,
in our
no.
conceptualizing of the importance of numbers.
And
Here we are
international
calling ourselves a
solidarity with our
minority when we're the
people.
global majority.
Right. And absolutely. And how and to have disdain for your brother or sister just because of the because they come from a different plantation than you is totally insane, and it's beyond my even
But
thought
it is
process.
it's so typical though.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
typical. And
Yeah.
again, it's necessary.
Yeah.
And again, it's playing up to, oh yeah, I'm from Johnson Plantation and Massa treat us real good over there. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's just an extension of that.
Yeah,
And
it
then
is.
too, I think there's some jealousy that exists too, honestly,
Mm,
because when we talk about these other nations, despite the fact that they may have been colonized or suffer from colonization in very significant ways, they got their own shit though.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And here you are sitting, begging for an opportunity, you
Mm,
know, to get close to this imperialist, praising those people who promote imperialism,
right.
and not even understanding how that makes you now complicit,
Yes.
and also how it's self-destructive and self-defeating.
One last thought I kind of wanted to get out there. First off, I definitely appreciate this bill, and we're going to do this again, definitely.
Yeah,
But
I feel like we only touched on a few of your questions. We
yeah,
had a
but
little
but
towards.
nah, it's better. It's better this way. Like the run sheet is just the outline, but whenever it takes a life of its own, it's better this way. But so one thing that and it just came to my mind, which is it's so it's so interesting to me that I've seen a lot of Black Christian people in America, be pro Kamala Harris, pro Joe Biden, and you're Christian. These people are bombing Jesus's homeland. You don't see like how that might be like contradiction to what you say your beliefs and foundation is. I just find that extremely weird. Or even if you were um, still going to vote for Harris with this harm reduction thing, acknowledge it that this is a problem, but I see none of that. I see none of that. And I don't understand. That's one thing that logically speaking, like if this is your belief system, right? This is the homeland of your belief system. These crackers in Israel are not the now are clearly not the people in the book that you read every day.
But you have to know that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
have to know those things.
Yeah,
And people simply don't know those things.
right.
We were enslaved by 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 the OG Christians.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right,
But
right, right.
they had in their own way. You went to others is they would have you, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And so what did they do? They said, "Oh well, they're not actually others. They're not actually people. So we got business. We can do whatever."
Right.
It just moved the goalposts a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
certainly when we talk about African people and taking on Christianity, and again, it's part of our having been created by the imperialism. That's part of
Hmm.
that's the legacy of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Certainly, people's moral compasses are shaped by their religion.
Hmm. It seems like we're kind of adopting the right wing Christo fascism that uh, these these right wingers that because there's a new book came out about J. Edgar Hoover, and how he used right-wing Christian nationalism to set the foundation of what American values were supposed to be. And it looks like we've
And it
adopted
goes
that shit
way,
too.
it goes crazy. Okay, so when we talk about the formation of the Jewish state,
Hmm.
how it was basically, created by some English dude who was like, oh yeah, you can have this, and so on and so forth. And because Palestine was, as so many other places were, a British colony.
Hmm.
And so um it's it's the foothold of Western imperialism in the Middle East.
Yes. Yeah.
That's why they've got an atomic weapon
Hmm.
in case all the brown people get to acting up. Just
Right.
the button.
And remember, Biden said if Israel didn't exist, we'd have to create one.
It's not at all from the standpoint of imperialism. This don't have nothing at all to do with Bethlehem and Jesus
Facts.
being born in a manger. We
Facts.
as Black people, because that's where it starts and stops for us, because we lack political education. So it
Yeah.
starts and stops at this little story, the baby Jesus. We have
Yeah.
to involve. And it's been said that yeah, they're supposed to be there, so they must be supposed to be there. And I don't really, my mother-in-law, who I love very, very much,
Hmm.
who has been such a support beam for our entire family. I respect her greatly.
Hmm.
Um, I go over there, take the children to see their granny and go and sit with her. And, she's watching a little TV at the kitchen table as she does. And, oh, daughter, isn't it so terrible what these Palestinians are doing to these
Oh
Israelis?
yeah, I've heard it. I've heard it
Granny,
by
granny,
some
please turn
elders.
off, please, please
Yeah,
turn off
please.
the TV. Please
Yeah,
turn the
yeah,
TV
please.
off.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And so I didn't
yeah,
even, it's not for us to be fussing and fighting with certain people at certain ages in life.
yeah.
We have
Absolutely.
to respect the thing.
Hmm.
Certainly, I'm not going to undo 70 years of socialization in 15 minutes, and I'm not about to be fussing in your own house about this issue.
Right.
But the fact is that our elders, who we love very much, who are very beneficial to our children,
Hmm.
who are, um, whose praises we sing,
Yes.
um, they have not been politically educated. They don't know what the fuck going on.
Right.
It's like
Right.
if I would go inside and ask my 3-year-old son right now, Jahi, what do you think about Israel? The boy, go look at me and ask me for a sandwich or something.
Yeah, yeah. It's
He
like,
just doesn't have the capacity and he doesn't have the understanding.
hmm.
You know, fortunately, no one's putting a news camera on the board to,
Right, right,
to
right,
highlight his ignorance.
right, 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 right,
That's when the danger becomes. Like I said, it's not necessarily our fault all the time that we don't have the knowledge, but certainly that doesn't make us any less dangerous.
mm,
So the creation of Palestine was, or I'm sorry, the creation of Israel was necessary, especially in the context of oil and so on and so forth. It was necessary that they're strategically placed there, and let's not forget their proximity to Africa as well.
right, right. Absolutely. Because
So this circle of destruction is certainly significant.
yeah, it was Dr. Sheikh at the Joke spoke about how that was, how Israel in proximity to Africa was always going to be viewed as a threat by Pan-African leaders who haven't succumbed to the trinkets of the West. But
Absolutely.
you're right. You're right. You're absolutely right.
Because throughout the continent, we cannot we do not have a single arms manufacturer.
Mhm.
If I'm incorrect, please correct me because I would like
I,
to know.
yeah, not that I know of. I have to
We do
look that
not
up.
produce
Mm,
arms. We
right,
purchase our arms.
right,
But what happens when they don't want to sell you arms?
right,
You
right.
don't have any arms.
You
And so
asked
that's why
out.
you see so many times we start tipping now towards Russia.
Hmm.
Russia isn't any more magnanimous. Certainly, we're still looking at a form of um, pro-whiteness, I'll say,
Yeah.
among the Russians.
Hmm.
And certainly now we cannot always view like communist and socialist societies as being necessarily pro-black. But this is why we see the tendency for us to lean now towards the Russians, because they'll run the arms. The Americans will be like, oh, I ain't got it right now.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Because we don't want to assist you.
Mm-hmm.
in defending your lines.
Right.
But to your point about Israel, man, yeah, it just goes all back to the point, the overriding point that we're not educated, we
Mm-hmm.
just don't know, and we tend to side now with the imperialists as a matter of course, just because of our proximity and the way in which we've been socialized to believe and to think.
Yeah.
So it's never a surprise to me when Africans fail to understand. You know, I was in London. A friend of mine was engaging in Palestinian protests. We had a discussion at that time about how um, the IDF is their police are trained in London,
Mm. Mm.
which are the same.
And
And then their IDF then comes and trains us in their tactics
yep.
here in the United States.
Yep. With
So
the
certainly we understand that that imperialism is the umbrella which covers us all,
mm-hmm.
and it just is manifesting its reach in different ways throughout the world. And um, certainly, again, you and I are not supposed to know that it's a global struggle.
Yeah.
Because if we understand that these things are affecting our people in Palestine, in the Congo, in
Sudan.
Suriname, in
Mm-hmm.
Taiwan, in
Mm-hmm.
Sudan, if we understand that it's a collective struggle, then we'll start to why is it that all these people are struggling?
Right.
It seems like we're all struggling against the same people.
Right.
If we actually took a head count and understood how many of us are under the boot of imperialism, then that might give us inspiration to say, oh no, we can collectively organize and remove the boot.
Yeah.
So never will the imperialists, because back to my mother-in-law, what does she do? She sits up and she watches Fox News of all things,
Mm-hmm.
all day.
Mm-hmm.
No. So when we understand that imperialism uses every institution at its disposal towards the end of maintaining power.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was very interesting to think about the fact that when we talk about Harvard and Yale and what is it, Ivy Tech? I'm sorry, I can't think of the name of the school. It's in California, but the emphasis is on
Oh.
engineering and science. Caltech.
Caltech. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When we think about these schools and the roles that they played in the formation of surveillance,
Oh yeah.
bombs,
Mm-hmm.
drones,
Mm-hmm.
we understand that even the educational system is complicit in maintaining white imperialism.
Yep.
When they talk about disease analysis, curation of disease,
Mm.
we talk about the Food and Drug Administration, how they maintain imperialism by destroying certain foodstuffs that they deem inedible,
Yeah.
maintaining hunger.
Mm.
When we talk about our legal system and our police system, and they put it on the side of the cars in LA to protect and serve, but that's an incomplete sentence, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's to protect and serve the interests of white imperialism.
Mm-hmm.
So we can never be surprised when the police kill us dead. We can never
Mm-mm.
be surprised when the food is not available to us. We can never be surprised when the prices are rising and the wage is stagnant. And we can never be surprised by any any future manifestation of power that they exert upon us.
Yeah.
And we'll continue to suffer under this
Mm.
until we're tired,
Mm.
until we've had enough. And I'm not talking about that little blip of they've killed another one of us and it was popular on social media and I saw it. Um, not that just little momentary upset, but just a constant level of discontent, right?
Yeah.
Because as Bob said, a hungry mob is an angry mob, and that's why I say I think a Trump presidency might be a little good for some people, shake it
Mm-hmm.
up a bit,
Yeah. Right.
because it's only under harsh conditions that we can now create the strongest revolutionary.
Right. Absolutely.
So, yeah, man, I'm never surprised by white imperialism. I'm just, but I'm, I'm I remain hopeful and I remain dedicated to the struggle because I put seeds in the field now,
Yeah.
and so it's incumbent upon me to ensure that their situation, their conditions are better than ours.
Absolutely. Right.
And
Right.
certainly, if, as I said earlier, if I can identify a way, and I believe that I have identified a way in which I can now support African people, um, and give many people a level of at least health comfortability, well, now they can think. And
Hmm.
that is the thing that I will do. But certainly, we all must identify a task, a goal to accomplish, something to do on a daily basis towards the end of something greater. And when I say all, I mean all that are conscious, all that
Yeah.
are aware.
Right.
If you have eyes to see and ears to hear, certainly apply your knowledge.
Right.
And integral to that too is revolutionizing people. And we have to remember that we will get more bees with honey.
Hmm.
So, I don't know how fruitful it is to be going online and cussing people, but we do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Right. Mhm.
but certainly I feel like brothers like yourself, I have to give a shout out to my son because he'll go viral from time to time, and he's taken on a lot of
Dope.
the principles I've instilled in him.
Hmm.
But there's a lot to be said about radicalizing people, putting a bug in their ear, giving
Hmm.
them something to consider that they haven't considered before. And if you continue to do it time and time and time again, then even if it's just the one or the two, that one or the two could be somebody that's pivotal and radicalize others.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. This has been a powerful conversation. I appreciate you immensely for coming through. It's definitely something that we got to do again. Um, Sister Atiyah, thank you for coming through. It's
Salute
been,
to you, my
yeah,
niece. I
it's
appreciate
been
the work
dope.
you do for real.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
But you have a good evening. All right.
You have a good evening as well next time.
Next time. Peace.